Hello, welcome to Pike Creek Farm. My name is Renee and I'm so happy you joined me. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping in. I like to do videos on canning and baking and cooking and vintage recipes. I like sharing my family's recipes. Today, I'm canning. I love to can. I'm weird, but I truly enjoy canning. And I was checking through my freezer and there was quite a bit of meat in it. And the other night I made pulled pork for dinner using some canned pork. I love canned pork. I like all the canned meats actually. And decided I was getting low. And then I looked in the freezer and I found a couple of pork roast, Boston butt, and then I found half a bag of chicken breast that I had put to can later. So I'm gonna can up pork and chicken. I'm gonna do it the easiest way there is, the fastest way. I wanna just get my canner as full of jars as I can. And so I'm gonna do raw pack. I'm not gonna make it into any special seasoning. I'm not going to pre-cook it. I am just going to do raw packed chicken and raw packed pork. And I want you to know that you can do both meats at the same time in your canner. It's the same processing time. So while you're there, it makes more use of your time and the time with the canner. So that's how I like to do it. So I'm just gonna cut up some meat now. And I'm sure you don't wanna watch me cut up all the meat, but let me get you out of the way of the cupboard. I have some bowls here. I have a knife. I have my cutting board. Here's the chicken. I've had it in the fridge thawing out. So now, let me start. This is part of one that I was using for the dinner I'm making tonight. So what I do is if there's any big pieces of fat, I trim that off. And sometimes you get like bone or grizzle there, but then we're gonna cut it in like chunks. 1 inch, 1.5 inches, about that size chunks. I don't wear gloves. I wash my hands, and I will wash my hands as soon as I'm done with this and clean up this entire area. I know a lot of people wear gloves when they're working with chicken. I never have. But this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna listen to music and cut up chicken. And then I'll show you the pork when I get to the pork. So, like here's a bigger piece. I will cut that off. And this will go to the dogs. I'll cook it down for them. I will be their hero. So I am just gonna keep cutting up the chicken and putting it in this bowl. And when I'm done, this bowl will go in the fridge. We have a fridge out in our garage that I use, so I will just put it out there and then I will cut up the pork. I don't want to leave this chicken out while I'm cutting up the pork. That's not a good idea. I'm gonna keep cutting up the rest of the chicken. It's almost done with that. There wasn't as much. And then I will bring you back for the pork and filling the jars and all that fun stuff. I'm gonna clean up this area and get a different board out when I'm done with this chicken. So, we'll see you soon. I'll bring you back tomorrow. Tonight I'm gonna finish cutting up this meat, wrap it in saran wrap, and put them in the fridge. Tomorrow I'll bring you back and go step by step how I fill the jars, all the safety procedures, and how I get a wonderful end product. So I'll bring you back tomorrow. It's day 2. So What I am gonna do now is I have my canner here, my 23 quart Presto. Follow the directions for whatever canner you have. You need to use a pressure canner to do meat safely. For my Presto 23 quart, and I have the one that's made for induction stoves and flat top stoves, and I love it. I would highly recommend it. I can double stack in it, which I'm gonna do today. It calls for 3 quarts of water added to the bottom. So I am gonna do that now. 1 quart. Now you can add vinegar to it if you have really hard water. I don't, and I have hard water. Excuse me. The reason I don't is it makes the rings look really weird, and I don't know if it makes them wear out faster, but I did it a couple of times and I was unhappy with how the lids look, the rings I should say. And I might get a white film, but it washes off, so it's no big deal to me. Because you have to wash the jars afterwards anyway, so what is the difference? 3 quarts. And I have a rack at the bottom. You never want to put your jars directly on the bottom of either a pressure canner or a water bath canner. And then I have a second one that I bought this on Amazon, and I put that on top of the bottom level of jars, because you don't want the jars directly on top of each other. You need to have a rack or something in between. So that's all set. The other thing I've done is I've cleaned my kitchen, I've washed my jars, and you want to go along each one, make sure there's no chips, because even a little teeny chip, that lid will not get a good seal. You want to make sure there's no cracks, because jars things happen. They can hit together, or just life happens. So always check, because it's a lot of work and your time that you put into this, your effort, and you want to have the wonderful result to go on your pantry shelf. So these are all wide mouth, and then I have some more, because I will need more than this, that will use wide mouth, and there's a couple of regular mouth. I got my lids and rings out, and I will be using 4-jar lids. I love these lids. The vinegar is to wipe the rim and make sure there's no grease to prevent the seal. And if you're interested in stocking up, and if you need any lids, I do have a discount code down below for 10% off. Okay, here we go. I have this big bowl of pork. We need to fill the jars with this first, and then I have the bowl of chicken. I don't know, it might take more than 1 canner to do it. Sometimes I overestimate. So you're just going to gently place it in here and push it down so everything fits. You do not want to pack it. If you want to add salt, you can add salt. I forget if it's half a teaspoon. I don't add salt to mine. I season how I want to when I go to cook it. I might want to use it in tacos. I just don't want the extra salt at that point. I want to have the salt when I want it, if that makes sense. But you can add salt. We need an inch headspace, so 1 inch is down here. I'm going to take out that piece, and it's touching. So that's all there is to filling the jars. 1 inch headspace for the pork. Wipe the rim, put the lid on, put the ring on, get it on the run. Start it correctly. Finger tight. The reason is when this starts to heat up, air will evacuate out of this. And you want this not so tight that no air can escape, because then your lid will buckle. And it sounds like a shotgun going off. So you don't want to experience that. But this is what will go into the canner. I do not have this canner on at all because I'm using cold meat, cold jars, cold canner. So it takes longer to come up to heat it up and get, for it to get to the temperature, but that's okay because this process is very quick. And if I wanted to, I could have part cooked this, and then you would have to add some liquid. This will form its own broth. The juices from this meat will come out and you will have a broth. So if you want to make a gravy out of it, not a problem. It is okay. If you want to, if you have a big gap, you can take the debubbler and like rearrange things, but you don't want it to be jam tight. Wipe the rim. This pork makes amazing pulled pork. Finger tight. It makes great enchiladas, great tacos, great quesadillas. It makes good pork and gravy, pork stew, noodles or rice with the pork and gravy. I have some like jars of Mexican sauce, and I will add that. So you got to play a little bit of Tetris with this to get the right size, to get the proper headspace, because headspace is important. Oh, there's a big gap down there. The way that piece fell, so let's see. There, we can fit that one in. Wipe the rim. Put the lid on. Finger tight, just till it stops. One more on the bottom, and then I'm going to switch to chicken because I have more pork than chicken. And I will have to do another canner load, maybe tomorrow night. Depends on what time it gets done tonight. If I had 2 canners, it'd be easier to do it in one night after work. Darn work gets in the way of everything, doesn't it? Unfortunately, it pays the bills. Bottom is full. I'm going to set this rack, which has these 2 holes in the middle, set that there, and now I can put more. I'm going to switch to the chicken now. Here is the chicken. Okay, and I have more jars. So we do the same process with the chicken, except, you don't need to see me. We do the same process with the chicken, except it's 1.25 inches headspace. That changed a few years ago, just a couple. So let me see. Yeah, this is not touching at all. Wipe the rim. Get all that chicken grease off of there. finger tight. When I first started doing chicken, I did add salt to it. But then I decided, I don't know, sometimes it tastes too salty to me. And I went by the measurements. So then sometimes I will put half of what they say. And I've just decided that I'll just add it when I open it up. The salt is not there for safety reasons. It's just there for flavor. You can add any dry spices to this, actually. Which I have done sometimes. Okay, 1.25 inches. Wipe that rim. Wow, this is like gonna be perfect. I couldn't do that again if I tried. So there's still room on the top. So I'm gonna do some more pork. Grease. Double check. There we go. That felt better. Have room for one more jar. So I will have to do another canner load. I have a regular mouth jar. We're back to the inch head space now. I have not heard that pork has been changed or beef or ground beef. And ground beef has to always be par cooked before you can it. I do have a video on that. Put the ring on. I can get it to line up. I seem to be having a problem tonight. There we go. Finger tight. Don't keep cranking on it and get it super tight. So here's the last jar. I always do a safety check. Here's my lid. First thing is I make sure this lock is not stuck and that it's tight, because it's like twist together. Here's my seal. I make sure it looks good, that it doesn't have any cracks. I do put some vegetable oil on it occasionally, not every time I use it. This is real important. This pipe stem here, I always blow through it and peek through it to make sure that I can see through and there's nothing stuck in there. And then this is the safety release valve. I make sure that's there and it's in position correctly. So with my Presto, it's real easy to put the lid on. There's arrows on here and on the handle, and you line those arrows up correctly, the lid just drops down. And then the handles are offset, and we just twist them till they stop and the handles are all lined up. Then I turn my heat up on my burner because we're starting from cold. And if I had been doing hot pack, then I would have had it on low. We want this to come up to temperature. We want steam to be coming out of this like a freight train. A freight train. Not just a little sputter, but full on steam coming out. And when that happens, we set the timer for 10 minutes. And I always set my timers. I always set my timers, and I always check my books. After that, I'm going to put my weighted gauge on. It's 10 pounds for where I live, but check your altitude, for where you live. You might need 15 pounds if Michigan's pretty flat and low. After 10 minutes of steam, I put the weight on, and I wait till it starts to do a jiggle and does a little hula dance, and then I will set my timer for 75 minutes. It is 90 minutes if you were doing quarts. The steam, okay, my lock pops up on mine. I don't think that's a requirement, that's just how mine always is. And now it is, you can hear the steam, but you can't really see it. Let's see if I can turn that light off. No, that didn't help. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And that lets all the air evacuate. I'll bring you back. So in 10 minutes, I am going to put this weight on and wait till it comes to a jiggle. I'll bring you back and show you the jiggle. Timer just went off. So I am going to put that on. And now we wait for it to start. The pressure will start to rise, and we pay attention to when it does a little dance. We do not pay attention to this. Here it starts. I'm going to turn the heat down so it doesn't go crazy, and set my timer for 75 minutes. I took the lid off and I've removed a couple of jars already, but you can see that the jars are boiling inside, and that's a good sign. So I will remove these jars, and here's the bottom, and the water looks clear, so I didn't have siphoning. So successful project so far. Here we are the next morning. Here's the pork. Oops. Okay, and it looks like there's a lot of fat there, but it sticks along the edges, and it is fine. Here's some of the chicken breast. See, it has some fat too, and this broth, the juice, is wonderful. But this is how you do raw pack meat, and doing more than one kind of meat at once to fill your canner up the whole way. It's a great way to clean out a freezer. So, thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions. And if you want to see more videos on canning, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. See you next time at Pike Creek Farm.